The morning Rebecca sold her husband's land was a Tuesday, and she dressed as though she were going to a wedding. She wore her good wrapper, the deep burgundy one with gold thread that she only brought out for naming ceremonies and funerals. She plaited her hair the night before, fingers moving slowly in the dark because the electricity had gone again. She pressed her blouse with a small pressing iron heated on the kerosene stove, and she did all of this with a quiet joy that her son Daniel had not seen on her face since before his father died. He watched her from the kitchen doorway that morning, eating cold yam with palm oil, and something in his chest sat heavy. "Mama," he said, "you don't have to do this." Rebecca turned from the small mirror on the wall, adjusting her head tie with both hands. "Daniel, your father left us that land, but your father is gone. What good is land when you are still here, struggling, driving that car up and down Lagos with nothing to show?" "I am fine, Mama. Fine." She said the word like it tasted wrong. "You are 26 years old sleeping in one room in Mushi. That is not fine. That is waiting. And the prophet said God told him, specifically, your name. He saw a plane, he saw a certificate, he saw a foreign country." She picked up her handbag and straightened her back. "I am not giving to a man. I am releasing what God already promised." Daniel said nothing more. What could he say? She had already decided. And when Rebecca decided something, even the walls of that house knew better than to argue. The land sold for 1,200,000 naira. It had taken 3 weeks to find a buyer, during which Prophet Samson called Rebecca every Sunday after service to remind her that delay was a spiritual attack and she must not let the enemy steal her miracle. He prayed with her on the phone. He sent her Bible verses by text message. He called her daughter in the Lord, and she received it like water. The day she handed him the envelope, the land money, and the small savings she had added from 10 years of selling tomatoes and pepper in Dubai market, Prophet Samson told her God was pleased. He told her the scholarship would manifest within 12 months. He laid hands on a photograph of Daniel that she brought in a small plastic sleeve and declared the boy's destiny open. Daniel was waiting outside in his taxi. He could not go in. He could not. He drove his mother home in silence, and she talked the entire way about the vision the prophet described, about the foreign university, about how she would sell her good wrapper to buy Daniel a suitcase when the time came. Her voice was bright and full in a way that broke something in him quietly. 12 months passed. No scholarship came. Rebecca stopped asking the prophet directly after the 6th month because every time she raised it, he found a new obstacle, a spiritual blockage she had introduced through doubt, a parental curse that needed another prayer session, a fresh seed required to unlock the previous seed. Each session cost money she no longer had. She started borrowing from her market women's cooperative. She stopped eating lunch to save transport fare to church. By the 10th month, she was sleeping on the floor of her friend Mama Tunde's spare room in Ibadan because she could no longer pay rent on her own apartment. She told no one except Mama Tunde, and Mama Tunde, God bless her, asked no questions and put an extra mat on the floor without being asked. Daniel sent money every month from his Lagos driving earnings. He did not mention the land. He did not say he had warned her. He sent the money and called every Sunday evening and asked if she had eaten, and she always said yes, even when the answer was different. What Rebecca did not know was that Daniel had been paying attention to Prophet Samson's ministry for a long time, quietly, the way a man who drives for a living learns to read roads, not dramatically, just steadily, noting everything. It was a Wednesday evening in March when Daniel picked up the passenger that changed everything. He was working a late shift on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway corridor, taking bookings through his ride app. The booking came in from a Lekki Phase 1 address. A woman, traveling alone. Destination listed simply as Ibadan. Unusual for that hour, but Lagos had all kinds of unusual. She got him quickly, a small overnight bag, sunglasses on despite the dark. She sat behind him and said nothing for the first 20 minutes. Then, Somewhere past the beggar bus stop, he heard it, a soft, broken sound. Not crying exactly, the sound a person makes when they have been holding something very large for very long and their arms have finally given out. Daniel said nothing. He kept his eyes on the road. Some passengers needed noise, some needed silence. He had learned to tell the difference. Then the woman spoke. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry." "It's all right," Daniel said. "Long day?" A pause. Then, quietly, "Long marriage." Something shifted in the car. Daniel adjusted his mirror slightly without meaning to and caught a glimpse. A woman in her early 40s, well-dressed, but with the kind of exhaustion around the eyes that expensive clothing cannot touch. "My husband," she said almost to herself, "has taken money from over 200 people. People who trusted him. Widows, sick people, old men." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I have the records. Everything. Every account number. Every name. I have been sitting on this for 3 years because I was afraid. Tonight, I stopped being afraid." Daniel's hands tightened very slightly on the steering wheel. "What does your husband do?" he asked, voice completely steady. The woman removed her sunglasses. In the mirror, her eyes were red and dry, past the stage of fresh tears. "He is a prophet," she said. "His name is Samson Adewale. He runs Covenant Sanctuary Ministries, Ibadan branch." The silence that followed was absolute. The woman leaned forward slowly. "How do you know that name?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment. The road stretched ahead of them, dark and straight. "My mother sold my father's land," he said, "and gave it to your husband. She is sleeping on a mat in her friend's house. She has not told me this, but I know it." The woman sat back. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she opened her overnight bag and removed a large sealed envelope. "Everything is in here," she said. "Bank statements, property documents, a list of 237 names. I was going to take it to a lawyer in Ibadan tomorrow morning." She paused. "But maybe God sent you tonight." Daniel did not sleep that night. He dropped the woman. Her name was Mrs. Folake Adewale, at a guest house near Dugbe, and sat in his parked car for 40 minutes, reading through the documents she had photocopied and pressed into his hands. Names, dates, amounts, account numbers in the prophet's own name and in the names of 3 shell companies registered in his wife's maiden name. Property titles for 4 houses in Lekki, 1 in Abuja, and a piece of land in Osun State. Among the 237 names on the list, on page 9, 4th from the bottom, Rebecca Adunola Okafor. Amount, 1,240,000 naira. Date, 14 months ago. Daniel sat very still for a long time. Then he made 2 calls. The first was to a journalist he had driven twice before, a woman named Amaka, who worked for a national newspaper and had given him her card and said, "If you ever see something worth seeing, call me." He had kept the card in his glove compartment for 2 years without knowing why. The second call was to his mother, just to hear her voice. What followed took 11 days. Amaka moved fast and quietly. She verified the bank documents with 2 financial analysts. She contacted 4 of the names on the list, and all 4 confirmed their stories within 48 hours. Mrs. Folake Adewale gave a recorded statement in full, her voice steady and clear, her hands folded in her lap, wearing no sunglasses. On the 12th day, Prophet Samson Adewale stood up at the front of Covenant Sanctuary Ministries to begin his Sunday morning service. The church was full. It was always full on Sundays. Nearly 800 members, the praise team lifting the roof, the ushers in their matching purple uniforms directing the congregation with quiet authority. Prophet Samson wore his finest white agbada. His old wristwatch caught the light from the overhead stage lamps. He smiled at his congregation the way he always smiled, broad, warm, completely rehearsed. He had just opened his Bible when the doors opened. 4 EFCC officers entered from the back. Amaka's photographer was already in position at the side aisle. She had been seated there since the first song, disguised as a regular member. The story was already uploaded, scheduled to go live the moment the arrest was made. 2 other journalists sat 3 rows from the front. The congregation did not understand immediately what was happening. There was a murmur, then a stillness, then someone near the back began to cry, not from the spirit, but from recognition, because some of them already knew, had already suspected, had already pushed the suspicion down because suspicion felt like sin. Prophet Samson looked at the officers walking toward him. His smile did not fall immediately. It fell slowly, like degree by degree, like a building that has been struck at the foundation and takes a moment to understand it is falling. He said nothing as they read his rights, not one word. The gold wristwatch was the last thing that caught the light before they led him out. Amaka's story ran in 4 national newspapers and 17 online platforms before noon. Within 72 hours, the EFCC had frozen 6 accounts and placed a hold on the Lekki properties. Rebecca heard about it from Mama Tunde, who heard it from her daughter, who saw it on her phone. She sat on the mat in the spare room and did not speak for a long time. Then she said, very quietly, "My son knew." She called Daniel that evening. He answered on the first ring. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "Because I needed you to be safe first, and because I needed proof before I said anything. If I had come to you with suspicion, you would have defended him. You know you would have." She was quiet. Then, "Yes, I would have." Another silence. "The EFCC called me today," Daniel said. "As one of the identified victims, you may be eligible for partial recovery of funds during the asset proceedings. It will take time, but it is possible, Mama." Rebecca closed her eyes. Through the thin wall, she could hear Mama Tunde's television, a news program, the prophet's face filling the screen. "Where did you get the evidence?" she asked. Daniel paused. "God sent me a passenger," he said simply. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed, a small, soft, exhausted sound, pulled up from somewhere deep. The first real laugh Daniel had heard from her in over a year. "Come home," she said. "Come and eat. I will cook." "With what, Mama? You have nothing in that kitchen." "I have yam," she said firmly. "And I have palm oil. And I have you. That is enough for tonight." Prophet Samson Adewale was charged with obtaining money under false pretenses, money laundering, and fraudulent misrepresentation across multiple counts. His ministry was dissolved by court order. His 4 Lekki properties were seized. His congregation scattered, some in anger, some in grief, some in the particular shame of people who had believed completely and been made to look foolish for it. His wife Folake testified for the prosecution. She sat in that courtroom with the same folded hands, the same dry eyes, the same steady voice she had used in Daniel's car on that dark road from Lagos to Ibadan. She did not look at her husband once during her testimony. He looked at her. 8 months later, the EFCC partial recovery returned 640,000 naira to Rebecca. Not everything, but more than half. She used it to rent a small flat near Dugbe Market. She bought a new tying wrapper, not burgundy, something brighter, and she went back to her tomatoes and her pepper and her cooperative women who had lent her money without asking questions and whom she repaid first, every kobo, before she spent anything on herself. She did not go back to any church for a long time. When she eventually did, a small, quiet congregation in a rented hall near her new flat, no prophet, no gold wristwatches, just a young pastor with a worn Bible and a congregation of ordinary people. She sat in the back row and listened and gave nothing except her presence. That, she decided, was enough.